It's one of these things. I know you've got the same problem, and I heard you were talking in the previous segment, where you'd like to be able to kind of go out to the ranch for a while, all right, and just watch the donkeys or whatever. Pretty hard to do. Once you get into this, I don't know that you can walk away. I don't even know that you can relax. And I have the same thing. There's part of me, I would like nothing better to go out and do some surf fishing. I'd like to be living on a beach where I could just go out there, just, cast out and catch a couple of fish and rest that, cook them up for dinner. The idea of breaking loose from this obsession, this calling, all right? Well, it's attractive, but I don't believe I could do it. And I doubt that you can either. You can get out on that, you can get that ranch if you want to, but you'll be back, you understand, and probably not very long. I think the most recent thing, you mentioned it before, and the most important thing, became involved in a lawsuit in 2006. I was added as the last of 7 defendants in a case that involved the manufacture and distribution of a controlled substance. The controlled substance was colloidal silver, but it's the same law that they would apply with heroin and cocaine, and it's a part of the drug laws. It was a civil prosecution by the Attorney General of the state of Texas, and they added me as a defendant. I was fiduciary for a trust. The trust was a defendant. They made me a defendant, and they're suing every defendant, including me, for $25,000 a day. That's $9 million a year. I guarantee I don't have that kind of money. And it sharpens your attention quite a bit to be sued for that, especially by the Attorney General of the state of Texas. I started reading the relevant law, and I'm a student of the Bible, and I have an understanding of the Declaration of Independence and fundamental principles, and I was just shocked. I read the law, and the definition of drugs presumes the people to be animals. And when I first saw the language, I thought, my God, these damn fools, they don't even know what they're writing. And then I saw it a second time. And then I saw it 2 more times in the federal law. First, I found it in the Texas law, then I found it in the federal law, and we found it in 23 separate laws and regulations that applied in our case. And it's abundantly clear that the government has been treating the people as animals. This is the foundation of our war on drugs. The war on drugs laid the foundation for much of the modern police state. The police state gave us the prison industrial complex. And all of this is balanced on a couple of little definitions of drugs and medical devices that presume the people to be animals. We traced this back. We found it in 5 states besides Texas and the federal law. I presume it's true in all 50 states. The earliest instance we can find of this is 1906 in the Pure Food and Drug Act. First time that we've been able to find that they first referred to the people as animals. They've been doing this for a century. You understand? This isn't a new thing. This isn't something that just happened in the last, couple of years. They have been regarding the people as animals for a century. We found it in Title VII, which is the Code of Agriculture. They define animals to include human men and women. Again, we found it in Title 28 relative to drug laws and medical devices. And I don't know where else it exists, but the fact that it exists anywhere is intolerable because... And this was the basis of our defense. I drafted a defense, again, student of the Bible. I understand that at Genesis 1:26-28, it says, on the 6th day, God created man in his image and gave man dominion over the animals. My Bible says that I can't be an animal. And I've got a constitution that has a First Amendment that says you can't interfere with my freedom of religion. So if you've got a law that says I'm an animal and I've got a Bible that says no, I'm not, guess what? You got a problem. You can't make that stand in court. And for what it's worth, so far as I know, I'm the first man in a century to read that law and realize what it meant. Certainly the first layman. I'm sure there have been a handful of lawyers and politicians who understood it, but most people, they don't even read the law and understand what it means. We drafted a religious freedom defense. The Attorney General went dead silent for 5 months, and then they came back, spent 5 months trying to settle a case, and then they just dropped the case after investing $500,000 in 6 years on pretrial investigations and hearings. So it's not a victory that you get chalked up in the record book. Well, we beat them, and we beat them with religious freedom. And it's important for this reason. It's not just an anomaly. There are people that are concerned about Obamacare, for example. Obamacare can be stopped with this same idea. Obamacare, I guarantee you, all of modern medicine in this country involves either drugs or medical devices. And both of those definitions presume the people to be animals. There is no medicine in this country, at least not licensed medicine, that doesn't presume you and me to be nothing but livestock. From the government's perspective, we're right up there with Jason and Jenny, or whatever the two names of the donkeys were from your previous guests. Just livestock. And based on that presumption, they can mistreat us, they can oppress us, they can push us around, they can do whatever they want, because we are not deemed to be men and women made in God's image. All of this is evidence of spiritual warfare. This is not just politics, it's not just law. This is evidence of something that's been, in my opinion, been going on for thousands of years. And we are now we're catching glimpses of it. We begin to see, same thing's going on now that was going on several thousand years ago. It's been going on since Old Testament times. And ultimately, it involves your relationship with the God of the Bible. That's what this is ultimately all about. If you are an animal, you're not made in God's image. If you are an animal, you are not endowed by your Creator with certain unalienable rights as declared in the Declaration of Independence. They are trying to get us to turn our back on those God-given unalienable rights, pretty much the same way Esau was encouraged to turn his back on the birthright that he received when he was first born. Jacob talked him into trading his birthright for a bowl of pottage. And later in the Bible, God says twice, he says two different times in the Bible, he says, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated. I've never seen an explanation of why God hates Esau. But I think the reason he hates Esau is because Esau turned his back on his birthrights. That was a function. He was the first one out of the womb. He got the birthright, presumably, so this extends. This is an act of God's will.
And he waived his right. Alfred, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to talk about birthrights. I just got a call from Jesse Ventura, and I talked to Ty. Jesse was on yesterday. I'm good friends with him. Jesse, as you know, former Minnesota governor, sued over the fact, and I've flown with him, I've witnessed it. I was probably going to be a witness, by the way, to them grabbing his genitals and squeezing on him. And Ron Paul has said this has been done to him as well. He has said that he deserves his day in court. The federal judge, after waiting 4 months to rule, AP, Pioneer Press, Twin Cities reports, U.S. District Court, Ventura suit over search tossed. I got the call, and they said, we're going to have a press conference at noon tomorrow Central, and then they're going to be on the show because he promised to give us the first interview after the press conference if this happened. But then they were like, wait till tomorrow. And then I Googled it while I was talking to him, and I said, no, it's hit the news as of 8:44 Central. So we're talking 12 minutes ago. But here's this example. Now the TSA is saying they're going to be on the streets of America. So while you were talking, I normally would listen. I saw Ventura's call and took it. We're all in this fight together. But, I mean, they are setting this precedent. They're now announcing checkpoints on the streets, lamp posts that listen to you, hands down the pants everywhere, telescreens saying don't trust your neighbors, FEMA takeovers of media. It's as if hell is breaking loose. But I agree with what you said a few months ago when you were on. I want to hear you elaborate on this. But talk about TSA. I want you to talk about TSA. I've got the biblical stuff. We've covered that 3 or 4 times. People got it. It's powerful, Alfred. It's at the core of this. You've covered the root. But now the fruits of this, we're looking at this right now. I agree with you. They want soft power. They want soft takeover. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the law to take vaccines, but now people won't take them. They're trying to make it the law. When they start forcing things is a sign of weakness, not strength. Right. But what do you make of this federal security force, this TSA, this domestic defense martial law system? Why is it all in high gear right now? What is the elite doing from Alfred Adask view right now that's got all this in high gear?
I think they're desperate. I think they understand that time is running out. There was a situation where Zygmunt Brzezinski, if I recall correctly, I believe
last year.
Yeah, this goes back before that. This was while Bush was still in office, and he became ensnared in the war in Iraq. And Zygmunt Brzezinski, he was critical of Bush, and he said, "My God, you've set the New World Order back 20 years."
No, you're right. That was about 6-7 years ago. And then he said again last year, the New World Order is losing.
Yeah, they're running out of time. See, they were going to just kind of ease us into this over the course of the next 20 years or so, and they understand they're running out of time, and I think they're desperate to try to make something happen here in the next little while. And we're headed for a big conflict in a relatively short period of time, but it's encouraging to know that they are desperate. If they're running this thing right, they shear the sheep, and the sheep don't even know they've been sheared. Nobody complains. Right now, they've got things like the Occupy Wall Street movement taking place around the world. They've had the Tea Party movement 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago. The evidence is, they've got the internet, and they've got programs like yours, they've got blogs, they've got people. I mean, there's a study I saw just lately that something like 90% of the people don't trust the government. You can't run this scam if the people don't trust you. It's the whole idea behind running a confidence game. People have to have confidence in the con artist. They have to have confidence in the people that run the con game. People don't trust the government. They can't run this thing except by force. And ultimately, I don't believe they have enough force to pull it off. They can run it by deception and ensnare everyone, and that's what they've been doing.
Yeah, but once you're aware of the hat trick, once you know a magician is running a scam, game over.
Yeah, I agree. Now there's nothing left other than to try to force people into compliance, and apparently someone's made a decision to try to do that, but I don't think they can pull it off. I think they're going to see so much resistance from outfits like Anonymous, for example, hacking into computers and whatever.
Well, take Jesse Ventura. I mean, he's a regular guy, and I've been around him personally. He is genuinely pissed. He called. He said, if Ron Paul's kept out of the debates, we should have revolts in the street. You know, it's like we want peace, but like 1776, these tyrants keep pushing. They have no idea that good people are 10 times more powerful than evil. I mean, there's no bully can stand up to a pissed off good person. They
don't think that we can do it. The people that are in positions of power are there because they believe in power.
Well, look at that sack of shit. Look at that sack of shit, Janet Napolitano. I'm sorry to talk like that, but there's no other word in the English language to describe her. Look at that sack of shit, thinking she can run our lives and take our liberties and our freedoms and molest our children. I mean, she is a pathetic bucket of crap. I'm sorry, Alfred, to talk like that.
I get it. I understand. But those are the kinds of people that are attracted to power because they believe in it. And I don't think, in their mind, I think they have a hard time conceiving that the power is insufficient to control. But the fundamental issue ultimately is not power, it's consent. You've got to get the people to consent to whatever you're doing. We saw this in the Vietnam War when they tried to draft everyone and send them off to Vietnam, and it motivated. It was the compulsory military service that motivated the riots and the demonstrations. People said, hell no, we won't go. All right, right now we're seeing something like that in Greece, where we've got a different kind of compulsion. They're trying to compel the Greek people to pay this enormous debt, and the Greek people are simply saying, hell no, we won't pay. We're seeing some of that even in the Occupy Wall Street. People are just saying, look, we are withdrawing our consent.
That's right. All the globalist fluoride, all the brainwashing, once that veneer of control peels back, it's the animalistic liberty lovers that the globalist vampires are so scared of.
Yeah, I agree. And as people are losing their consent. They are refusing to consent to government, and it just puts so much sand in the gears. Government depends on their ability to deceive, and mislead the people. And that's being just eradicated by internet, by radio programs like yours and so on. It's the people are just sitting back and say, wait a second, this is a bunch of crap, and I'm not going along with it. And now what? The government... You know, there's only about 0.3% of the population that are police officers. And there's only about 0.3% of the population that are in the military. And if they bring them all back, they're still outnumbered close to 150, 200 to 1.
Alfred, let me stop you. My wife was watching. Our video stream is so good, it's in real time. She called up. My children are watching when I made that comment. And it's desperate of me. I'm not somebody in private who even uses profanity, but I don't have words to describe Janet Napolitano, so I apologize to my wife and children, everybody else's children. I will not do that again tonight. It's just at a certain point, I look at this criminal, this person that shipped tens of thousands of guns into Mexico, drugs into the U.S., it's come out in court, and they don't get in trouble, and it's more of a ghost dance. It's a desperate... there's no words to describe how demonic these people are. And so I apologize for the using non-King's English there. It's just at a certain point, Alfred, don't you ever just want... Did you see all the videos of Libya with the kids with their jaws blown off and their tongues hanging out? And
no,
little
I
kids
haven't
begging
seen
for...
them all, that's for sure, but I understand. That was just another atrocity. I mean... that is haunting me now. I mean, I must fight these people. I cannot have this in my name, Alfred. You know that point where you go even beyond fear, and it just becomes like you're only afraid of yourself, like controlling yourself? I understand. I'll tell you, you reach a point where what I've come to understand is that your fear is inversely proportional to your faith. You can look at Revelation 21:8, and it's got a laundry list of sins that will get you condemned to damnation. And it includes the sorcerers and the murderers and the liars and the whoremongers and so on. The top of the list, it says in some versions, cowardly, in other versions, those who fear. And the reason is because your fear is inversely proportional to your faith. When you really grab hold of faith and you really get the idea that God is real, and it's not just a little game, and it's not, when you really get it, what do you got to fear? Now, my fear is, I still have a certain amount of fear. My faith is not perfect, but nevertheless, you grab onto that faith, and when you really begin to understand it, you become pretty close to fearless. And if you can get perfect faith, then I assume you can get, you can achieve absolute fearlessness. But it's also...
Okay, well, here's my problem, Alfred. I am fearless, except I realize my fearlessness actually makes me weak at a certain point because I am fearless. And then I realize that's almost reckless. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. I understand it. It's a fine line. Well, from my perspective, I mean, without knowing you well enough to say one way or another, you have to make up your mind whether you are fearless, from my perspective, in service to what the good Lord wants done, or you're just fearless in a secular and earthly sense, in which case, that may be reckless. You better have a lot of judgment to back that up, because there's some battles that are, you don't want to step into the ring with Mike Tyson unless fearless is not enough to step in with.
No, I'm not going to step in the ring with him unless I've got a .357 Magnum.
Yeah, I understand.
No, I mean, at a certain point, they're poisoning the food, the water, and we've got to break out of the trance and say, it's over, scum. I'm done. I see you, and I want to bring you down.
Well, you mentioned you talked to someone, you used the word satanic, or I believe you're referencing people that are in government. It's not just hyperbole. It really is spiritual warfare. That's what we are dealing with, and it took me a long time to understand that. And I know, 15 years ago, people talked to me about it, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I get it now. That's what this is. This is spiritual warfare. And it's an important concept because most of the people in this country at least pay lip service to the God of the Bible. And you can take their homes and their cars and their kids and their cash, and they won't do much about it. But you mess with their faith, if they understand that you are messing with their faith, they will come after you. There is no war like holy war. And if people can be made to understand the spiritual foundation for the conflict that's going on between ourselves and the government right now, and that it is diabolical. It's not an accident. We look at them in a secular sense. Well, it's not diabolical. Yeah, it is. That's what it is. And once you get
Of course it's diabolical. It's diabolical, diabolical, diabolical. These people are doing it to watch the world burn. It's the journey is the trip. And when you realize they're not giving us quarter, they're not backing off, they don't have some goal of even power. It's all about destruction and pain, and they will not give up. They must be met. They must be faced. We must commit to resist them, period. And when you realize they're a bunch of chicken neck scum, that's what's even more pathetic, is it's like watching a little bitty dog dominate some giant powerful dog. It's such an aberration of the order of the universe. The universe in justice cries out for these enemies of humanity to be brought low.
I agree. But you want to bring them low, you got to get people, from my perspective, help people understand this is spiritual warfare. They'll stand up and fight for spiritual warfare. Again, take the kids, take the car, take the cash, take the house, take all of it. They'll complain, but they aren't necessarily going to fight. Mess with their faith, and you're going to have a war on your hands. And it's the one thing the government fears, in my opinion. I mean, they don't want to mess with the people's faith, not overtly, because they know it's an explosive, it's
more than faith, as you said, it's in our gut. But I mean, my issue here is that these people, they are trafficking in men's souls. I think it's a lie to say the root of all evil is the love of money. That's how they sell out unconscious people. They create this money out of nothing. It's all debt-based. The more they create, the more you're in debt. When you get to high-level Illuminati, they are about the souls of men. Revelation says they trafficked in the souls of men. They want your mind. They want your soul. They want your intellect. That's what they want. That's what they want.
What they want is you to consent to your own destruction. They want you to step up. Satan can come down here and put a gun to my head and pull a trigger right now, and it does him no good. All right? It's not enough for him to kill me. It doesn't matter. If I'm right with the good Lord, I'm going to a good place. What he has to do is entice me into voluntarily turning my back on God. That's the objective. If I will abandon my birthright, if I will voluntarily say, well, I don't need that, in the same way that Esau did, say, hey, I don't need the birthright, just give me that bowl of pottage. If they can persuade an individual, if they can persuade a nation to abandon those God-given unalienable rights, then you may be, by that voluntary act, you may open the door where you can stroll right down into Hades. On the other hand, if you're prepared to stand up and say, hell no, I won't go, they have another problem. They need your consent. Force is counterproductive for them, really. They can't capture souls by force. They have to get consent. But
Alfred Adask, give us the website.
Adask, ADASK.wordpress.com.
I'm the same way. I'm just like you. I grew up going to Baptist churches. I had a relationship with God. But I know God's real. But when I was younger, it wasn't part of my life when I was a teenager. But the more I study the world and history, these globalists, they know about the spiritual. Yep. They're obsessed with it. This is a spiritual battle. This is otherworldly. This is not just man against man. There is an evil force guiding and manipulating this.
I agree. And I harp on that story about me getting tangled up with the Attorney General down there in Texas. We stopped him. You understand? He'd invested 6 years and nearly $500,000, and we stopped him with a religious freedom defense. It's evidence that the system respects this.
No, the Hopi are allowed to take
mumbo jumbo.
Listen, the Hopi are allowed to take mescaline. I mean, when it gets down to religious, that's one thing the Illuminati bow to, because they've got to trick you to serve them, and they can't run over that. You're right. It's this religious statement is the most powerful because it's universal galactic law.
That's exactly right. So the question is, just got to get people to begin to understand it. And it took me a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. But you start and you come to knowledge eventually, or you come to understanding. It takes time. But and it's one of those things where I think you're already drawn to it. I think in some degree, some people are already drawn to this, whether they've ever heard of it before or not. It resonates with them. Their soul's been looking for it, and they'll catch on. They just need somebody to show them, yeah, that's what's happening. And one of the most important things, we used to have meetings in Dallas, and people were afraid. Those meetings were successful in large measure because after I got the meeting started, I'd go to the back of the room, sit at the back of the audience, and when the speaker, whoever was the guest, he'd start speaking, I would make it my business. I'm paying attention, and whenever he had an important line, He made a memorable line, or a memorable statement. I'd start clapping my hands, all right? And the rest of the people in the audience would sit there, and they were afraid. But if you persisted at clapping your hands, then they'd start too. They are scared to death to stand up alone, all right? And they are afraid to be the first one to clap their hands. But if you clap, if one person will clap and persist in clapping, eventually other people stand up and say, well, I can clap too. And then they are empowered. They get a sense of communion. They get a sense of community. They begin to realize, my God, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one who thinks this is important information. All by itself. It's powerful, powerful stuff. It's part of the reason the meetings grew to where we had the biggest legal reform group in the country there by 1996. It had to do with just something as simple as clapping your hands.
And you put out the Anti-Shyster, right?
Yeah, for 12 years.
Was it Anti-Shyster? Didn't I write some articles for you? I can't remember now.
No, I don't believe I've ever published anything from you in the Anti-Shyster.
What was the other magazine?
Well, I changed the name, and I regret doing it, but I did change the name to Suspicions for the last...
No, there was some other magazine. I remember Vic Vreeland. He was the guy who came up... I came up with the idea, Infowars.com.
Okay.
But he came up with the idea because there's a war on for your mind. He was a retired firefighter, great guy, Air Force guy here in Austin. I think he still lives around here. I got to meet up with him. But I know he liked your stuff then. This was like in 97. I knew you had the Anti-Shyster, but there was another Patriot magazine at the time.
Well, there was...
Media Bypass.
Media Bypass, that's exactly right.
That was Media Bypass. Now, I remember I wrote a few articles for Media Bypass.
Yeah, that's it.
And then that article got to the Austin American Statesman, and they actually admitted there were special forces, helicopters, and all these drills. I want to go to calls. The number is 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. People always complain by the time I mention the number. They haven't written it down because normally my own studio is a different number than the regular weekday radio show, but it's 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. But Alfred, all I know is I go off my gut and my spirit. And when I talk to you, A, what you're saying is historically right from my own research. B, I feel good when I'm talking to you. I feel, the strength of research, and I feel a bond that you're connected in to the Most High. And when I get into this whole thing of fearlessness, my fear is that I'm so bold and so reckless against the enemy because we're attacking him hardcore. I mean, the stuff going on behind the scenes is insane. But then I realize, well, God's in charge. It's just that then I think, well, if I was more, wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove or whatever, we'd get more done. It's just hard to try to balance it. But you know what? I'm just going with it, and that's the end of it.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
You got to trust in the Lord. And, if you're doing the Lord's will, if it's time for me to go, I don't have an objection. Somebody wants to come up, put a gun to my head and the rest of that sort of thing, pull the trigger. I've had plenty of life. I'd like to get some more and the rest of that, but in and of itself, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of dying badly and stupidly.
No, me neither. Exactly. I'm scared of failing. That's it. I'm scared of dying badly and not continuing my work. That's my only fear.
Yeah. Well, me too. It's hard to understand. I really feel like I've been called by the good Lord to do this. And it wasn't something I was looking for. I didn't start out as a holy roller.
No, I remember 15 years ago, wasn't even religious.
No. Same thing with me. Pretty much the same thing with me. It was just a casual thing. But you get dragged into this kicking and screaming, whether you like it or not. I don't know. Once you get that, you believe you're called. You don't have any choice. You do it. I'm going to do this until the day I die. That's just virtual certainty. There's no retirement. I'm not planning on retiring. I may have to live in poverty or whatever, but that doesn't disturb me. I'm going to do this. Good Lord, He will present opportunities, and if it's only to talk to one person, sometimes that's all you get. I'll talk to 500, maybe only reach one. Good enough. Good enough. My job is to scatter the seeds, kind of like Johnny Appleseed. I'm not in charge of making sure the seeds grow. I'm not in charge of harvesting the apples. I may not even get to eat any of the apples. But I am in charge of spreading some of those seeds around, and I intend to do so to the limit of my ability. Good Lord. And I like it. It's a great life. You pay a price for this. It wears you down and it wears you out, and there's a price to be paid. And yet, Can you imagine another life you'd rather have than the one you've got right now?
No, there's nothing more fulfilling than serving life.
Nothing. I'm doing exactly what the good Lord wants me to do. I am doing exactly what I was meant to do. I'm pleased. I live better than most people can imagine. And I have next to nothing, but I guarantee, I know I'm living better than most people can understand. And it's hard to communicate, but I know you get that.
No, I know. No. Sometimes I say, God, I can't understand this understanding. I can't deal with this discernment. I'm just a blob. I have this thing of like, I'm in dirty rags. Why am I being given all this knowledge, this understanding? How do I know the next thing they're going to say on the news? How do I know what they're going to do next? How are you giving? Why me? It's almost in the brain burning with awakening and understanding. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, I'm absolutely talking about it. I mean, there is no one more mystified. If anybody sits out there and they say, hey, this guy thinks he's been called by God, and they can sit back and make fun of me. Believe me, I make fun of myself on one level. It is hard for me to believe, as hard as it might be for other people to believe. Why is God calling me? There's a bunch of better people than me. I mean, I get that. It's not just false humility. I mean, I am.
But Alfred, God has called you because you're humble.
Well, I am now, and the rest of that sort of thing. I don't know why he's called me. I mean, it's one of those things, but there's not a doubt in my mind that he has. All right, good enough for me. I don't need to know why. I don't need to know why. All I need to do is try to figure out what direction does he want me to go in right now, and it's not always clear. You know, I kind of think he wants me to head off in this direction. Is that right? You know, and I'm kind of...
That's what happens. God gives you discernment, and then you're standing there going, you've just given me all this understanding. I'm just this feeble human. What? I mean, and then you look at the globalists serving evil. They're like these demonic pygmies standing around a bucket of disease, worshiping it, and you're like, why are they doing that? Yeah. You know, it's like, as humble as we are, what are these devil worshipers doing? What have they given into? What is the point?
Well, for one thing, evil is a lot easier than good. And part of the reason for that is that lies are nice and compact and tight. And you can put a lie into a nice, tight little package. But when you start talking about the truth, you start talking about the truth of an orange. And as soon as you start talking about the truth of an orange, you are soon talking about the color orange. And now you're in spectrum of light. And pretty soon you're into physics and you're into photons and the rest of this sort of thing. The truth is almost endless. It's everything. But the lies are little tight, compact packages. And
truth is the universe. Truth is reality. Truth is powerful. And the evil aren't ready to stand in that fulcrum.
That's exactly right. Evil is easy. I mean, it's easy, it's simple, it's easy to understand. It's the truth. That's where you're wandering around and you say, what am I supposed to do now? Because it's so big. And the more you see, the more there is to see. At least that's an opinion I have.
No, this is the most powerful radio I've ever done. You're absolutely right. My entire life is like, whoa, if the public could see this, the discernment, the levels, the endlessness, and then you see the evil. They run the temporal world, but they literally are these stunted, pathetic creatures, and then you don't even hate them. You realize they're slaves.
Yeah, I know. And they're pathetic in their own way. They think they're getting over. And all they're doing is condemning themselves to damnation. I mean, it is stupid. It's self-destructive. It's hard to understand. What do you say? You know, it's dangerous. It's challenging.
But you know, Alfred, God doesn't want some candy-butted, good old boy who claims they're like a Pharisee up on the mountain. God's looking for people like Alfred Adask and others that are out there watching tonight, looking for real men, real women. God's actually looking for people that have been worldly. God's looking for people that have actually seen the dark side and want the good. And you've got to just open the door. Christ is knocking, you got to open it. Alfred, what's your point on opening the door? People say, well, I don't have this intellect. I could never grasp this. Folks, it's not your intellect. You open your level. Yeah. You open your mind to this spiritual information. It's over.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. It has, and you know what it has to do with, a lot of what it has to do with? It has to do with trusting yourself. And I don't mean that in an egotistical sense, but so many people are fearful. Yes, your gut, your common sense. You look at something and something inside you says, that's wrong. And everybody else is doing it. And it looks like they're having a party. And it looks like it's a lot of fun. You look at it and say, no, that's wrong. You have to learn to go with that inside that's telling you what to do rather than just following the herd, because most of them are just following because they're scared to death to trust their own judgment. Part of this, in my opinion, you got to learn to trust yourself. You got to begin to realize the good Lord gave you eyes, he gave you ears, he gave you sufficient intelligence to deal with the problems he's going to hand to you. If you're going to just follow the herd out of fear, though, and try to conform, from my perspective, again, you got that story of Esau coming back.
That way leads to destruction.
You're back on the birthright. I think so too. That's what I think.
Well, Alfred, we're definitely on the same wavelength. I want to take some phone calls here in the last 37 minutes before Tex Mars joins us. But in the next 4 or 5 minutes, anything else that's on your heart to add and give to this audience that's watching us across the world right now?
Well, I don't know that I've got anything in particular. When you asked me to be on the program, I asked what were we going to talk about, and I talked to Jaron, I think, and he said, "Oh, we'll just talk generally about whatever's going on in the world." And
yeah, we just say we're talking. Yeah, it's not like
All right. Well, it's anything else that's ringing my bell right now? I don't know. Third party. There's one. I have in mind to create a third party. All right. And I've had this in mind for several years, and I haven't had much success. And most people think that a third party is an impossible thing. This is foolishness. But first, look at the mathematics. In a typical election, half the people who are eligible to vote don't vote. In an off-year election, 60% of the people who are eligible to vote don't vote. It means in an off-year election, for example, you only need the active support in a two-party election. You only need the active support of 21% of the people. Only 40% are voting. So you only need 21% to be elected, less than 1 in 4. If you had a viable third party, the odds would go down to something like 13, 14%. A viable third party that could attract 13, 14% of the support of the potential voters in this country could potentially take this country back in an off-year election. Number goes up some when you get into a presidential election, but it's still a small number. 1 in 5 is more than enough to take this country back with a viable third party. When you think about it, it's powerful and it's important because we are not being overwhelmed. We're not being defeated by the big battalions. We can take this whole country back with 1 in 5, and I guarantee you probably 60% of the country agrees with the kinds of ideas that you've put out on your program and I put out on my blog and little programs I do and so on. I'll bet you 60% of them are sympathetic to what we're talking about. We need only 1 in 5. The second part of this third party, the party platform would be the Declaration of Independence. There would be no argument. There'd be no additional planks in the platform. Declaration of Independence. 1, we get our rights from God. 2, the principal business of government is to secure those God-given unalienable rights. Use that Declaration of Independence, and then there's no infighting. No party infighting as to what we should have on the planks of the party. Use the Declaration of Independence. It's got everything we need is there.
Well, I want to bring up another point, Jim. We're going to phone calls. Sean, Tripp, Jeff, JT, Keith, Ben, and a whole bunch of others that are holding. Alfred, look at Ron Paul. He came out and said, well, if I don't win the Republican nomination, I may run third party. He recognizes that it's about taking the field, injecting real issues. Win, lose, or draw, we win. But
and it's entirely possible right now. It isn't even, given the internet, it can happen like that. If
people believe in it, if they believe we have power.
If you can motivate people,
it's all up to them. Whatever they believe we can do. Listen, Alfred, I told George Norrie this, the other guest tonight. I go to like Arkansas, California, Las Vegas. I was there doing a Jesse Ventura's TV show a week and a half ago. Every 5, 6 people I walk by were listeners. That's power. Not that Alex Jones has power, that they recognize me and say they're listeners shows our numbers are huge.
You're exactly right. They're waiting. I mean, this is the sort of thing that I can't do on my own, but I'm telling you, I have thought about this on this third party. It can happen almost overnight. The only thing that's required is you got to get people to sign up to be candidates before the end of this year. The big obstacle for a third party is to get them on the ballot. In Texas, you need 50,000 signatures, at least the last time I checked the law. They have to be rounded up April, May of next year. You have about 6 weeks. Almost impossible to do with small numbers. But if you could get 500 to 1,000 people who committed and said, yes, I'll run for dog catcher. Another guy says, I'll run for state senator. I'll run for city council. You get 500 to 1,000 people. If you had 1,000 people who were willing to run for office, they would be the people who would gather the signatures
Alfred,
you need. They need 50 signatures a piece.
When you run for office, you educate people. Look, it's resistance is victory. Saying no to this system and standing up against it is the answer. I want to go to some of these phone calls. You ready?
Go ahead.
Sean in Missouri, you're first up. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex, Alfred. I just, first of all, want to thank you both. You're true heroes to me, and I appreciate what you're doing for our country. And on a personal level, I really appreciate what I feel like you're doing for my children and their future. My question for you is, I've listened to Alex for many years now, and maybe I've missed it, but my question is, what is the tipping point? I don't live in the city, I live out in the country. What is the tipping point where you draw the line? Is it when they come and ask for your guns? Is it when they come to and demand that you vaccinate your children?
Well, if I can answer that, and then Alfred can. In Texas, in 1832 or 33, it was when they came to take the guns. In 1775, it was when they came to take the guns. In other places, it was when they came to take people's children for conscription. At a certain point, it's when they come to lay their hands on you. And that's what TSA is a ritual to put their hands all over you for forced inoculations, to train you that they're going to set up checkpoints. It's a federal martial law ritual to acclimate as many as they can. Alfred, what is the tipping point?
Tipping point is when the people, it isn't so much what the government does. It's when the people finally say enough. It's the government. The American Revolution was over a tax that was something like 2 or 3%. They were paying almost no taxes compared to what we do today. It wasn't a number so much what the government did. It's when the people just finally stand up and say, enough of this crap. And we're not so far from that. Again, Tea Party was a demonstration. We're close to that tipping point. The Occupy Wall Street movement and the fact that it's spread around the world indicates that we are close. The Arab Spring indicates that there is a sentiment in the world where people have had about enough of government. Now we're going to sit back and watch, and there's going to be an event. And it was kind of like the guy in Tunisia who set himself on fire. He finally just had enough, and he went out and he said, I can't deal with all this government regulation anymore. Doused himself in gasoline, set himself on fire, and he precipitated the Arab Spring. Right? Something like that is going to happen.
And the globalists tried to steer it and control it, but they're still going to fail at the end of the day. And that's the issue, is that now is the time to warn people. Now is the time to identify the real enemy. Now is the time to talk about the New World Order, because all these people are awakening, but the globalists are going to try to misdirect them into false solutions. Caller, anything else?
Just want to make sure I kind of have it straight here. So you're saying, in your personal opinion, when they come and ask for the guns like they did during Katrina, that would be a time that would be worth saying no, and of course they'll insist on taking them anyway, and then that's when you're going to have, you feel that a Ruby Ridge type moment.
Here's the deal. We're, as Alfred said earlier, we're hurting them politically and with our speech, and like Gandhi, letting them abuse us is waking everybody up. I'm not looking for a fight. Anybody who's been in a real fight isn't looking for one. The point is, I'm trying to control myself not to get in the fight, because every minute we suck them in deeper is a closer to victory. But yes, that is your own personal moment where you can't take anymore and you're being assaulted. Generally, it's about defense. You don't use this knowledge in attack. You're always stronger. I mean, take myself. I grew up in Dallas. I thought everybody got in fist fights every weekend. I moved down to Austin. Nobody gets in fist fights. I love it. I'm not looking for a fight. But I always learned every fight where somebody attacked me, it didn't matter if they were big and bad and the state wrestling champion. If they attacked me, I could kick their butt. The few fights I lost was when I got arrogant and got in a fight myself. I have no power when I'm on the offensive. When I'm on the defense, look out. I appreciate your call. Comments on that, Alfred?
The only thing I'd say is Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote the Gulag Archipelago, and he was talking about the prisoners in the Soviet concentration camps.
Oh, how they burned in the camps.
They were constantly debating when should they have stood up and fought. All right, at what point? Because if anyone, when they came in to arrest these people, if they knew there was someone standing behind the door with just a baseball bat, I guarantee that the government wouldn't come in. It was, when should they have resisted? It was a constant debate. Your callers, Sean, I believe his name is, he's facing that issue. Where is the tipping point? Nobody's got an answer for that. It'll be something that no one sees, understands, but all of a sudden it'll be like tinder. There'll be a spark, the tinder will explode, and everybody's going to say, oh my God.
In fact, guys, pull up the Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, How We Burned in the Camps, Pulitzer Prize winner, lived decades in a camp. Look, here's the deal. The key to guerrilla warfare, if it comes to that, guerrilla warfare, is do not wait in your place for them to come for you. If it ever comes to that point, you choose the battlefield, you choose the time. You don't even need a firearm. A butter knife can get you any weapon you need. We're not looking for that. Okay, let me be clear. But once that path is chosen, once the war path is there, then it's total victory. It's defeat of the satanic globalist. Alfred?
Yeah. I mean, part of the problem, what Sean needs to do right now, you keep your eyes and ears open. I don't know what the tipping point's going to be, but recognizing we're getting closer to that tipping point, your obligation is to prepare yourself. That's where you are right now. Be prepared. Be prepared. Learn, study, understand the moral foundation for what you're doing. Understand the technical foundation. What do you need for firearms, or what do you need in order to litigate? Be prepared.
Exactly. We've got a lot of avenues to fight right now. Before you even think about physical action as some solution, it's way down the road. Pirate FM, local newsletters, going to city council, speaking out. Those are the things we need to use now, because believe me, it's easy to talk about violence. It's primitive, it's simple, it's quick. That's not the road to victory. We first have to get our word out and try to avert this peacefully.
I agree.
What I'm after, I just want to think it through so that when the moment happens that I'm steadfast, I'm not ready to compromise. Because what if they had a false flag terror tomorrow, and then boom, all of a sudden the town's on lockdown, they're coming around, hey, we need to get your guns because it's dangerous out here. That's the kind of stuff I'm worried about. I'm thinking, okay, is this the moment, or do I go ahead and hand this over because maybe they'll lift off the ban tomorrow?
Well, that's why they want the registration. You can hand them the junk today and then organize tomorrow. Always pick the time yourself. Never play on their time frame. I appreciate your call, Sean.
Okay.
This is the time for choosing. I mean, we are entering this phase. These are people poisoning our water, our food, on record. I've given you all the documents. These are demonic pigs. But at the same time, it's time to reach out to those that serve the system who aren't awake. There's the quote. And how we burned in the camps later, thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family, or if during periods of mass arrest, as the example of Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, appalling with terror at every bang on the downstairs door and every step on the staircase, but had understood that they had nothing left to lose. Oh, that's me, folks. You better believe it. And had bodily set up in the downstairs hall, as our founders gave us, an ambush of half a dozen people with axes. We got more than that, thanks to George Washington. Hammers, pokers, and whatever else we had at hand. After all, you knew ahead of time that those blue caps were out at night for no good purpose. and you could sure ahead of time that you'd be cracking the skull of a cutthroat? Or what about the Black Maria sitting out there on the street with one lovely chauffeur, talking about a commie leader? What if it had been driven off of its tires, spiked? The organs would quickly have suffered a shortage of officers and transport, and notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst for your blood, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. We'll go back to more calls. Your comment on that.
This system feeds off your fear. And that's not just I've had a judge tell a friend of mine that. A judge told him, look, don't show any fear when you're in that courtroom. They feed off your fear. It's the same thing. What Solzhenitsyn was talking about is everyone was afraid to be the first one to fight. Let somebody else fight for my freedom. I don't want to fight for my freedom. Will somebody else please stand up and fight for my freedom? I'm afraid to fight for my freedom. I want someone else to fight for it. That is the attitude that puts people in camps.
Or we have the Alamo, where 168 people stood against 4,000 and died, but their sacrifice is known in eternity.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's a question of whether you will succumb to fear or you will stand up as an act of faith, an act of courage. And hard to do, easy to say, hard to do, but that's what it comes down to. You know?
But then even the Japanese come and put plaques at the Alamo. But again, I get back to the fear of not completing my mission. Do I let them take the guns that are in my house so that I can organize against them? Yeah, there it is. Is life so dear, peace so sweet to be purchased at the price of chains or slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
that's Patrick Henry right there.
That's right. That's right.
But, I mean, people thought that's a radical statement. Give me liberty or give me death. That's the only answer. If you're not willing to die, you don't get liberty.
Exactly. And
there's always some little creature that wants to steal your liberty. There's always some bossy potbelly that's going to try to overrun you. If you're not ready to fight them, then get ready to bend over.
That's exactly right. And where does liberty come from? According to the Declaration of Independence, it's one of the God-given unalienable rights. Liberty flows from God. Freedom flows from man. You free the slaves. A man frees the slaves. God gives liberty. There's some overlap between the two terms. But if you want the real deal, that's the brass ring. You're looking for the liberty that comes from God. And you're saying, look, give me God. If I can't get my God-given rights, get me out of here. I don't want to be here. And that's the deal from my perspective. It's spiritual warfare. It's not just liberty in a political sense or a legal sense. It's spiritual warfare. God gave me that liberty. I want it.
Well, folks, if you believe in what we're doing and want to see more of this put out to the four winds of this planet, donate at InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com or 888-253-3139. I am dedicated and 100% committed to overrun this enemy and to 100% put my body and my intellect against them, and so is my crew. Donate to us so that we can hire more reporters and get better equipment and at least attempt. Justice be done, may the heavens fall. Duty is ours. Consequence belongs to God. I don't know how this ends, but I am committed, frail and weak as I am. We are kings compared to this scum evil, and we must take them on head on. InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com or 888-253-3139 if you want to donate right now. Let's talk to Trip in New York, then Jeff, JT, Keith, Ben, Ralph, Palmer, Rachel, Don, Donna. Go ahead, Trip. You're on the air with Alfred Adask.
Hi, Alfred and Alex. Got two quick questions for you. This would have probably meant more before the supposed Osama bin Laden capture, but wouldn't it have drove Obama's ratings through the roof if he would have all of a sudden announced what we've all wanted and said that he thinks World Trade Center number 7 collapse was suspicious and actually relaunched an investigation with real experts?
Well, I don't believe Obama's ever going to make that statement, and I doubt if anybody in the White House who wants to keep breathing much longer is going to make that statement either. It's going to take an interesting revolution to get anyone in a significant position of power in government, especially the White House, to admit there's something suspicious.
Well, look, I mean, it's come out the government's stealing the drugs and bringing the guns, the different crime syndicates. They're a group of criminals. We'll never expect the criminals to admit they're a bunch of dirtbags.
That just, when that happens, that means the Christ is back amongst us. It'll be one of the signs. When you get a president who admits the crimes that have been committed by our government, that means end times are definitely here. The Christ he's either here or he's awful close.
Anything else, Trip?
Yeah, well, I guess that takes that as we'll never hear that. But my second question is what is the Vatican thinking, wanting a world bank? Isn't it, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it signs of the end of times of one world government, one world bank?
All of the powerful structures are in the throes of the wicked one. I mean, Alfred?
I agree, but I would say this. Insofar as anyone, including the Vatican, is attempting to create a new world bank, we've got a lot of trouble happening in this world right now. And again, you look at Greece. They are refusing to pay the debt. Iceland already refused to pay the debt.
It's not their debt. It turned out it was all owed by the banks.
I understand. It's all a bunch of it's paying someone else's debt. There's all sorts of moral questions about it. If the people of the world, part of the Occupy Wall Street thing is motivated, at least part of it, by people who can't pay their college debts. There's millions of people who can't pay their mortgages right now. 4 million mortgages are 90 days or more behind on their payments. We are in a world right now where the debt can't be paid. And it's becoming increasingly obvious people are getting ready to just quit it. When they quit the debt, when they finally say, screw it, I'm not paying. That's all. I'm not paying. How about that? The debt-based monetary system will go with those debts. You're not going to just repudiate the national debt, and it's going to come to that, in my opinion. It has to, because it's too great to be paid. It's got to be repudiated. It's just a question whether you do it now or you do it 5 years from now or whenever. But it's got to be repudiated, in my opinion. If it does, you can't repudiate all that debt without also repudiating the debt-based monetary system. And from my perspective, without knowing the details of what's going on with the Vatican and perhaps trying to set up another bank or whatever, somebody's got to be looking at a new monetary system that's based on gold or silver. We're not going to, the debt can't be paid. I believe the debt-based monetary system's going down with it, and that means somebody's got to be putting a new banking system together right now in anticipation for this failure. At least that's the way it appears to me.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Trip. Jeff in Houston, you're on the air. Go ahead. Interesting hearing what's happening in your house. We can hear a woman talking to people in the background. God, I love this. I love the sounds of domestic noises. JT in Texas, you're on the air. We'll go back to Jeff in a minute. Go ahead, JT.
Yeah, I wanted to get Alfred's take on what the New World Order is doing to our kids. They seem to pay attention to them. What are these people's end game?
End game is to make the children accept the fact. I mean, from my perspective, I harp on this business about animals. I've seen it. I understand it pretty well, and it's part of it. They are working on the kids because they want to condition them. You know, a lot of people, and we've all been conditioned to some degree. Theory of evolution is one classic example. That theory of evolution is pretty much mandated by the government, and most people think, well, that's just scientific, and it's okay to teach science in the class and the rest of that. But the fundamental premise of evolution is that we are evolved from animals, and therefore we are animals. To my mind, it's not just a coincidence that they want to teach and force people to understand and embrace the theory of evolution. If you're just an animal, it's not going to be remarkable to you to find law that says you're just an animal. It's not a surprise. It's scientifically correct. But people don't understand that under our Declaration of Independence, we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and they only flow to men and women. They don't flow to animals. If you don't get those God-given unalienable rights, you're nobody. Plus, third sentence in the Declaration says that to secure these rights, Governments are instituted among men. They are telling us the purpose of government as envisioned by the founders was to secure to every man, woman, and even unborn child their God-given unalienable rights. Insofar as government can persuade you that you're nothing but an animal, they have no obligation to recognize or secure your God-given unalienable rights. From my perspective, this is central to the problem.
JT, does that answer your question?
Yes, Alex.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you, JT. Keith in California, you're on the air with Alfred Adask.
Yeah, I just had a statement I wanted to make, Alex. This is more to your audience than to you. I'm not addressing this to the people that are donating and the people that have the bumper stickers and things like that. What I find interesting is you have millions of viewers out there. I think you're at about 170 right now in donations. It's almost like people sat on the sidelines. You know people can at least donate $1, donate something to this, put this thing to the roof. And they don't even have the care up there. It's like they're watching this as like it's entertainment or something. They don't get involved. I live here in the Bay Area. I might have seen 2 of your InfoWars stickers within the past year on cars. I went up to the End of Fed demonstration. There was 2 of us from InfoWars there. I mean, what's wrong with the people here? Are they so cowardly they can't step up? Their own kids are at stake, or their lives are at stake, and they don't stand for anything?
Well, Keith, I'll tell you this. I found that once people make that first step to be public, that's a big step, they think they're in danger. The truth is you're in danger when you're not public, from my experience. That's this whole chilling effect. And yes, we're in a depression. And that's why I'm not even telling folks, hey, give us donations, we got to have them. It'll help me hire the next line of people so that we can do an even better nightly news and radio show and produce even more. And it'll have a great effect and reach tens of millions of people. Biggest bang for the buck out there. But, you know, I never even wanted to grow to this level. Now that I'm here, I do need the funding. It's InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com or 888-253-3139. Yeah, we have millions of listeners every day, 15 million a week conservatively. And you're right, it is a tiny fraction that will even spread the word, tell folks about the radio show, buy a video, donate. We have donations 1 time a year. But it is because somehow people like the government taking their money and giving it to causes they don't like. But to actually give, they understand psychically, spiritually, is to commit to something. Alfred, do you have any comments about this 27-hour broadcast? And I think it's great what we've raised so far. It's 170 or whatever. I mean, that's going to help us hire 2 or 3 people and do some stuff. I think it's great. I want to thank those that have donated. But yeah, I mean, Ron Paul should be given $1 billion. You know, Wall Street's giving that to Romney and Obama instead of Ron Paul getting $20 million. This show should get $20 million, not $500,000. I mean, it's like either give your treasure to the fight or have it taken and used against you. You know, it's like we ask, give to us if you want. The system just takes it.
I agree, and it's partly a certain amount of fear. People are a little bit afraid. We're in difficult economic times. They think, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have enough money for the kids' lunch next week or something like that. That motivates some people.
I don't want those folks to give. I'd rather slit my wrist.
But I'm just saying there's a certain amount of fear behind this, and I don't know. It's one of those things where, again, you got to trust in the good Lord. He'll give you as much money as you need.
No, but going back to that, Keith's talking about people that know what's going on but won't speak out, won't make a copy of a DVD, won't give $5.
I've run into it myself. We used to have meetings in Dallas, and we'd have a couple hundred people at the meeting, and it cost $200 to rent the room. We'd have 300 people at the meeting. I'd pass the hat to pay the rent. And sometimes I had to pass it 2 or 3 times to collect a lousy $200 to pay the room rent. You understand? Out of 300 people. They are notoriously cheap. All right? We had one guy come into town. He was a good, smooth talker. He had people sign up. He had 100 people sign up that were paying, $500 a piece to attend his seminars that extended over a couple of months, once a week over a couple. He collected $50,000 out of a group of people that I could barely get $150 out of. You understand? $200.
No, it's weird. You give them crap and make them pay up front, they'll do it. But you give them the world, they give you nothing.
I understand.
It's weird. It's crazy. It doesn't matter. The truth's getting out there, and we're hugely successful. We funded this whole operation. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate your comments. Ben in Iowa, you're on the air with Alfred Adask.
Alex, I've been trying to get a hold of you for years now, and I'm just going to ask you a question. But David Icke was on earlier, and that guy, you're right, he is on fire right now. I've been paying attention to that guy for a long time. But I think something that goes to all of your guests you've had, Jesse Ventura and Dave Mustaine yesterday, like Gandhi said, you're in a minority of one, the truth is still the truth. And no matter what race, what sex, what anything you do in your day, the truth is, in all of these people. And when you say, we're all in, we're not just all in with ourselves. We want all the truth. We want all the corruption. We want all the crime. We want to see what we're living with in everyday life. Not just sitting on the sidelines and saying, oh, well, it's kind of bad, let's not do anything. No, I want it all, and bring it all to me because I want to know everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Good Lord calls you to get the truth, and once you get an appetite for it, I can't imagine how you can give it up. No?
There's so many people out there that, if I say, hey, did you see the TSA is groping people? Or, if you look at it from the point of view of just, sit yourself down.
No, they make excuses. Oh, they have a reason. They think if they make an excuse for it, it makes it okay.
Yeah, but Alex, everyone in the world can ask themselves one simple question. Am I treated and looked upon as an animal by people that control all of the systems, or am I looked upon as someone that's full of love and ambition and wants to do well?
No, exactly. They don't treat you like a sovereign creation in the image of God. They treat you like a dropping from a rat.
Yeah, and like what David Icke was saying, the man's amazing. The chasm that we have to get over, it's not like a little bridge we have to jump, or, it's a chasm where we can barely even see the other side. We need to go out into it, and in the middle of the chasm there will be complete darkness and utter aloneness for, just us truth seekers. We're going to come out on the other side at some point. And everyone needs to realize that the truth will get you there. You judge in...
Man, I agree. I agree with you. We got to get past our fear, commit to truth. Alfred's got to go in just a few minutes. We got Tex Mars coming up. Let's jam in a few more calls. Ralph in California, you're on the air. Go ahead. You're on the air with Alfred Adask. Rachel in Tennessee, go ahead.
Hi, Alex. Hi, Alfred. How are you tonight?
Good.
Good.
Great. Just wanted to let you know I did donate today for you. I've just been latched onto you for about 9 months now. I found you a couple of years ago and kind of went away, and then I came back. I said, now I'm into it. I'm in it. I've got my city. I'm trying to get them to get the fluoride out of the city. I've already got them stirred up with the hornet's nest. And I've got one of my kids, they're both teenagers. One of them he sits and watches you with me some nights, and the other, well, he thinks I'm a kook. But anyway.
Yeah, folks that thought slavery were wrong were called kooks.
Yeah.
But 60 years later, it was, well, just to be clear, ma'am, I appreciate your donation to the Money Bomb at InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com, but I want to be clear. People who are not in good financial stead, and I want to make sure you're in good stead, I don't want any donations. For people that hate communism, globalism, New World Order, and who want to fund the #1 media organization fighting globalist tyranny, that's what it's all about. I want to thank you, but it's always the people that are of meager means that are giving, and that isn't who I want. Jesse Ventura has come out today and said, this is not the country I was born in. We're a fascist nation now. I talked to the Venturas earlier tonight. They've ruled that the TSA can grab all of our genitals. But finishing up with you, ma'am, go ahead and finish your point.
I have a question for you, Alex. I've just recently went to one of our city's park, and I've seen signs that are posted all through the park. There's like 26 of them. They're bright red and bright green, and they're all emergency checkpoint signs, and there's map signs of the park, and it says Veterans Memorial Park Pre-Plan. Have you heard anything on parks
Ma'am, they've got checkpoints as a beta test all over Tennessee. It's a real epicenter. They've got them all over the country, and they are just setting up federal checkpoints everywhere. The borders are wide open. It's all about breaking our will, training us to be prisoners ahead of forced inoculations and gun confiscation. It is just totally criminal. I appreciate your call, Rachel. Alfred Adask, I want to give you the final comment. I know you've got to go.
Well, it's all a question of courage. It's a question of faith. It's one of those things. It's like, people are afraid to give. They're afraid of a bunch of things. They're afraid to stand up, and it's part of what you said earlier. You're probably safer standing up than you are trying to hide. Folks like you stand up, and a lot of people are amazed you've been able to keep standing up. It's because you stand up that you become to some degree invulnerable. Even though you're a target, they'd like to get you, but they also know if they do, they're going to get a bunch of people that are going to get angry. It's the people that hide and hunker down that are more likely to be captured, oppressed, whatever.
No, it's what Solzhenitsyn goes back to. A quarter of the city gets arrested, deported. What if they would have just fought? Instead, they just waited. You're the government.
Yep.
You're wearing a uniform. You're my God. Take me to a camp, gang rape me, murder me, shoot me in the head. You're a dirty commie. You're my master. Oh, God, I love you. Thank you for all the gang raping. And Jesse Ventura has now come out. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. I talked to him earlier and the family earlier. They're very upset. He just wanted his day in court against not having pot-bellied pedophiles grab his testicles. And he said, this is not the country I was born in. We're a fascist nation now. They've tossed his lawsuit. I'm trying to convince him not to leave the United States because it's a worldwide tyranny. But it's totally disgusting what's happened, and we're going to have him on tomorrow with us. We had him on yesterday, obviously, but it's just a very dark day to be incrementally by a bunch of psychological warfare scum brought into this tyranny. But Alfred, I really want to thank you for spending all this time with us, and I look forward to having you host the broadcast or be back as a guest in the near future. We really appreciate you.
I appreciate the opportunity every single time, Alex. Thanks very much.
I appreciate you.
Time.
Oh, thank you. God bless you, my friend. You're a good friend, and I look forward to meeting you in person. I've watched your great work for many years. What's the website if folks want to learn more?
Adask, ADASK.wordpress.com. Just a blog.
All right, Alfred, go do your own show. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Alex. Good night.
All right, there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, another patriot. It is great solace to know there are other souls like mine out there, and you're out there as well fighting this evil. It is such a good feeling because ideas and the spirit of liberty is bulletproof, and they can't stop it.